Welcome to the Warriors Cast, your hub for everything Utah Warriors rugby. Great to have you on this edition here on Friday, December 20th. I'm Jeremy Jordan alongside Banksy. Banksy, we are 5 days away from Christmas, baby.
Merry
ready?
Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year.
Chris Mahana Kwanzaa. You're rolling it all into one there.
Adam Sandler's song is coming into my mind. Yeah. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, IGTV, Apple Podcasts. Of course, you're watching us or listening, so you found us, but you can share it that way. Leave us a rating, review the podcast, and use the hashtag WarriorsCast. That's hashtag WarriorsCast for questions and comments. Great to have you. Here's what's on the rundown today. We'll break down the 2020 schedule. We'll chat about that. Looking forward to February 9th, start of the season. Player Spotlight on Yuri Van Vuren. We'll tell you about him. MLR names a new commissioner. We'll tell you who. And the official announcement of 2 new teams in 2021. We haven't even gotten to 2020. We have 2 new teams for 21. Rugby 101 on the forwards, your area of expertise. And we'll
look, I'm not an expert on anything. I know a couple. Calling me an expert's a real reach there, Jerem.
Well, I think you're an expert. And we'll chat with the real expert, Warriors forwards coach Shawn Pittman. Looking forward to that coming up.
He knows a couple things.
Former pro player, Eagles coach, now the forwards coach for the Utah Warriors. What a get for the Warriors to have him on the staff. That'll be awesome. And how you can get free shipping on merch you purchase today only. That's later on the show. And by the way, season tickets are still going on sale, are on sale. Get tickets now. Perfect for individuals and businesses. Okay, let's get this going. 2020 schedule. We're under 2 months from the start of the season. 16 matches in 17 weeks. 8 home, 8 on the road. One of those home will be in Vegas, by the way.
The neutral home ground, but I think we're officially the home team for that match, right?
And what, probably the closest to the venue anyway, right?
Yeah, true.
7 in Harriman at Zions Bank Stadium, the home of the Warriors. It starts Saturday, February 9th at 2020 MLR newcomer Rugby ATL, and that's going to be interesting. That is a long ways to go for the first one, but you have the whole offseason to get ready for that match.
I think, it's always good to get that first match to shake off the cobwebs. As a new franchise, they're going to want to come out of the box and get a win first. So, the Warriors are going to have to be ready. It's not going to be an easy get, even as a new franchise. They're going to have some good – there's a lot of good rugby being played in the South. There's a good core of club teams and international players that are coming in that they've got to draw from there in Atlanta. I expect a good showing from them in year one.
First match is the head coach for Chris Latham. That'll be a big one. 4 matches in February in total. The one in Vegas we mentioned,
that should be fun, by the way. If you're not planning on going to Vegas, make your plans because Rugby Fest in Vegas with MLR is going to be a great weekend.
That's going to be really fun, no doubt. New England Free Jacks, they're another new team, 2 of the 3. We'll get to the third later. Then at Austin, now the Herd, not the Elite. They did not perform in an elite manner, so they had to change the name last year.
Valid.
Colorado Raptors.
Shots fired.
Not Glendale.
That was kind of a low blow.
How many points last
year?
Wrong.
You're not wrong.
5
I'm just saying it was a low blow.
5 points. Come on. They know they can do better. Come on. We move to March. There's only 3 matches. The only bye week of the season. This is crazy. 16 matches in 17 weeks. Comes in March. At Seattle, back-to-back champs. First home match, by the way. What a first home match.
That's great. Look, we played well against them last year. I really feel like the guys let one slip against Seattle last year. They were in that match most of the way. I think this is going to be a chance that circle that as a statement game.
Everyone's gunning for the Seawolves, too. Let's go.
When the champs come to town, you got to be ready.
You got to. And then NOLA Gold on Saturday, March 14th. Then home again after a bye week, March 28th against San Diego Legion. Ma'anonu, JP Duplessis, Patty Ryan. That team is loaded. That's going to be a huge match.
Stacked. I think San Diego's done more, at least on paper, with bringing a lot of the flash and the glamour and the changes to be able to compete with Seattle. Obviously, if Seattle's the bar, and San Diego being the runner-up.
And just barely behind, right, in that championship match.
You want to talk about game changers and playmakers on that team. One of those guys could make a difference for your team. And they've got 3 superstar signings on that squad. That's going to be an electric team to watch.
The back of the year, the forward of the year, and they add Nonu. For those that don't know, give people a sense of what Nonu means to MLR. This is the biggest signing MLR's had in 3 years.
So this would be the equivalent of, LeBron James basically going to play in like the European League for basketball.
For FC Barcelona.
Exactly. This is the equivalent of an A-level star. This is a guy that's won World Cups, that's won championships everywhere he's been at every single level. He is as big a name as they come. From his time in New Zealand to his time in Europe, playing at Toulon and all the other places that he's been. I mean, this is a guy that is a monster on the field. He came back to New Zealand last year because he wanted to try and make the All Black squad and played some of the best rugby he's ever played. Ma'anonu has not lost a step. People thought or had talked that he would coming back from Europe. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All he did was run over guys in Super Rugby and still got overlooked for that squad. So, he's going to come to America with something to prove.
That's March 28th, so get your tickets now on warriorsrugby.com. I mean, that's going to be awesome. Then in April, at Toronto, that's a fun long road trip, international road trip. Houston, then home to Austin and Seattle. May features matches at Old Glory, D.C. That's the third new team in the league.
And another trip all the way back east.
Yep, that's a big one. Home to Colorado and Rooney, then at San Diego, and the regular season finale is May 30th at home against Houston, and that is 16 matches in 17 weeks. I mean, and that is loaded. You get Seattle twice, you get San Diego twice, so it's certainly a tough haul in terms of who you're going to play, but you're going to play more teams in the West than the East, like we've talked about. You want to be in the top 4 to be able to qualify for the playoffs. The Warriors did make the playoffs year 1, did not last year.
I think if you look at the schedule, I mean, everybody's got a tough schedule, right? There's no easy weeks. When you look at the schedule, though, we have time to catch our breath. We're not playing, playoff team in a row. We've got a chance to take some of these weeks and work our way up to these strong teams like Seattle, like San Diego, like Colorado, but then taking nothing away from teams like Austin and Houston,
like I did earlier,
that didn't perform at their best, but obviously we didn't either. So
right.
I think we're in similar company, but a chance to make some statements and really show that we can be that class team in the league, especially out west.
Yes, and I was so impressed by Toronto and Rooney, Rugby United New York, coming into the league, and they made the playoffs in year 1. So will we see DC or the ATL have a similar performance, or the New England Free Jacks, where one of them sneaks into the playoffs or more, right? There are more playoff spots now as well, by the way.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of those expansion teams makes it into the playoffs. Not one bit.
Is there one that sticks out? New England, perhaps, given the kind of history of
you could
Irish
say that with the history
whatnot.
there. I wouldn't put it past a team like Atlanta.
Okay.
It's a big market. They have a big player pool to draw from.
You said it's the only team in the South right now.
There's old tournaments historically that have been played throughout Georgia, Louisiana, and Florida that you're talking tournaments that have been in existence for over 50 years. I mean, so you're talking about, we talk about as rich a history as we have out west. That history is there in the South, and they have a player pool that they can pull from that I think might surprise some people. I think they're going to play better. I hope they play better than people would expect out of them. A lot of people are looking at Rooney to really take a big step up. Obviously, Toronto is basically the Canadian national team. I mean, what is it, 16 of their players at one point have signed with the Canadian national team. Like,
it's impressive.
It's Canada light.
Blew out the Warriors last year. Warriors looking for revenge.
So, there's a big get there. Don't be surprised if they're in contention again. But there's no easy weeks. I mean, if you look at what Coach Suniula is doing in Austin with that program, if you look at the turnaround that happened in Houston at the end of the season once Coach Emmerich took over, there is no easy game on the roster for any of these teams.
Okay, single game tickets are going on sale in January. Best ticks will be to get the season ticket benefits, STH special events, gifts, merch, discounts, meet the team. Go to warriorsrugby.com. Okay, time for a player spotlight. Let's talk about a lock. South African, 6'6", 250, always good measurables, but this guy has experience. Yuri Van Vuren, Pro 14 experience, Super Rugby experience, Stormers in South Africa, Southern Kings in Pro 14, has played in Wales, Ireland, Scotland. He's played at a pro level, and he adds to a already talented group of locks in Matt Jensen and Sayo Hila.
There's going to be competition at this position more than any other to see who's going to be the tight head and loose head lock. Last year, it was just a given. We had Saya and Matt, and that was it.
Yep.
For better or worse. Thankfully, they both performed really well all year as a big key part of that engine room in that type 5. But with the addition of Van Vuren, you're talking about a guy that's got length, that has power, that has the rugby IQ to really take that position to another level. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's not just good in the air and at the set piece, but a guy that's good with the ball in his hands too.
And this is important and impressive. Billy, were you going to add something? Saya was playing with a ruptured bicep. That's when you know you hit the weight room really hard. You got a ruptured bicep. Wow, that's impressive. And
So
Matt Jensen has rubber ankles.
To get those guys healthy, though, I mean, you're talking about a healthy Sayo Hila. You're talking about a healthy Matt Jensen,
who's put on weight,
who's added another 20+ pounds in the gym this year. You're talking about a guy that can compete at every phase of the game, offensively, defensively, and at the line out, and be a factor at the scrum. Nothing is guaranteed at that second row position.
And that's exciting. And you need depth because last year there were 3 bye weeks. This year there's only 1 with more competition in the league. Okay, Yuri Van Vuren is our player spotlight. Time for Rugby 101. If you don't know the game, if you know it, hopefully you can learn something here. But we begin the discussion of the positions in rugby. Starting 15 jerseys, all attached to a position, which is unique in the sport of rugby. Pretty awesome. You can see the number and know the position. That's unique. Let's begin with the forward. So there are 8 dudes in the forward pack. They compose the muscle, the engine room, as you like to call it, of the scrum and the lineout. It starts with numbers 1 and 3, the loose head and tight head props.
So the tight head prop is arguably the most important guy in your forward pack because he's the guy that's the foundation of your scrum when the players pack down. He's the guy that when you go down, he's got the 3 on his jersey, and he's going to have 2 opposing players on either side of him. So his head is in a tight position between those other 2 players.
Hence the tight head.
That's why he's the tight head prop. Opposite him is the loose head prop, who has only the 1 player to his inside going against the opposing team's tight head prop. And that's a guy that when you talk about the position of your scrum and really challenging against another team scrum, that's a guy that can be a huge asset in helping your team win the ball.
Are the tight head's ears worse than the loose head's ears? Because he's between 2 dudes' heads. Is that a thing?
It is a thing. You know, it is a thing. I always wear headgear, and so my ears have been relatively unscathed through the years. I've had to have the right one drained a couple of times. But, yeah, you can usually tell a front rower by his ears for sure.
Yes.
The cauliflower ear factor is real.
Cauliflower ear is legit. Man. Woo. Okay, number 2, the hooker. Yep, awkward laugh if you don't know. He's the one who throws the ball in on the line out. The throw in sequence out of bounds where a team lifts the guy high in the air. He catches the ball. He also hooks the ball back with his foot in a scrum. I guess what else does the hooker do?
So traditionally, that's where the hooker got his name because the rules have changed
Thank
recently.
goodness.
He used to be the only one when the ball was put into the scrum that the 2 opposing hookers would take their feet and try and hook the ball back with their heel back through their scrum so that they could play it. And it used to be only the hookers could hook the ball. Not the case in the modern scrum. Now, anyone on that front row can actually hook the ball back. So that's going to be a point of kind of competition now, where the gamesmanship a little bit at exactly where the ball's going in. It still has to go straight in the channel. Still has to be an even competition, but whether the expectation is the hooker is still going to be your primary get for that, or maybe your loose head prop on the throw is going to be able to get an early hook on that ball. But traditionally, that's where the hooker's name came from, is because he was the only person on the front line that could hook the ball back with the heel of his foot back through your second row and out to your 8-man and restart play.
Okay, we've covered the props. We've covered the hooker. Let's talk about jersey number 4 and 5s, the locks. Taller but slender, super fit dudes like power forwards on a basketball court. They're the ones who are lifted up in the lineout traditionally, taller guys.
So they're called the locks because they actually lock the scrum in. You have your front row, which is your props and your hooker. Your second row are your locks, and those 5 players combine for your tight 5, and that's what we call the engine room. That is the foundation of everything that your forward pack does, are those 5 guys. Those are the guys that do the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheets. They do the hard work. They do the rucking. They do the scrum, and all of those things that to a backline player with really good hair and white boots on, you know, it's a complete mystery what's going on up there in the bigs. But you want to talk about 2 guys on the tight head and loose head side that their position in the scrum is to lock those 5 players together. They are the stability. Where the front row is your power, your locks are really the stability of that as they grab onto each other and then through the players' legs in front of them and hold everything together and bind and support those front row players.
Now to the back row, or the third row of the scrum, comprising of an open side and blind side flanker, 6 and 7, and then the number 8, which is hilarious to me. There's no name for the position. It's just the 8-man or number 8.
It's just the number 8.
Yeah.
So your blind side flanker and your open side flanker, Very similar positions in the difference really is one plays the short side of the field and one plays the open side of the field, depending on where that restart comes from, and there'll be different specialties that'll be involved in each of those players. Typically, your sixth man is kind of your enforcer, on your team. He's the kind of guy that he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and go in there and regulate some things, especially in and around the breakdown.
Regulators mount up.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
That what you're saying?
Can't be no geek off the street. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. One day someone's gonna come up with a name for 8-man.
No,
It's
just the number 8.
It's just number 8.
It's been hundreds of years, Jerem.
Yeah.
It's the 8-man.
It
That's
shall
the name.
not have
so,
a
you've
position
got your
there.
blindside flankers. These are going to be your more dynamic forwards, typically faster paced, not necessarily always smaller, especially in the case of somebody like your 8-man, who in the modern game is very typically a very large human being, a la like Vunipola for England, or even look at like the size of a Kieran Reid playing for New Zealand. A lot of these guys, South Africa typically has some monsters at number 8 and have for years with guys like Dwayne Vermeulen and some of these incredible players that they've had. Number 8 really is a guy at that position that you look forward to being a leader on your team. That's a guy that's going to have experience, that's going to have athletic ability to back it up. That's a guy that's going to be a voice on your team. Think of him as like a middle linebacker on defense.
I love that analogy.
Like he's the type of guy that is going to be a physical presence at every stage of the game, but he's going to be a vocal leader in and around the ball, even when he doesn't have it in his hands. He's the kind of guy he's that type of player on the field.
John Cullen embodied that last year and will this year for
100%.
the Warriors. Yeah,
you want to talk
great.
about a guy that has played, capped, played under 20s, a guy that has all of the experience and the intangibles that you look for. He is one of the saltiest human beings that you will ever meet. He is sarcastic.
It is Salt Lake. Let's go.
He's
Let's go, man.
Come
it's
on.
Great Salt Lake. Let's
that was
go,
the
baby.
whitest joke anybody's ever made.
Well, look at the room. Look at the room.
But he's that type of guy that he has it, and it showed in so many different games last year. I especially look at like the San Diego game where it went right down to the wire. It was John Cullen being in the right place at the right time to make the score under the posts, to keep the game close, to keep it within 3 points in that last 5 minutes. He's a guy that consistently, game after game, found himself in a scoring position just because of his rugby IQ. Now, whether he can get his defense to play up to that level and continue that offensive production will be set to be seen. But he does come in with a fantastic mustache into training camp.
That's important.
He's added a wife, a baby, and a mustache in the offseason.
And it's debatable which of those 3 things was the most important. But that is up to John Cullen. Hey, if you want to be salty like John Cullen and the rest of the Warriors fans, merchandise bundles and new merch are on sale. Beanies, hats, scarves, and new Warriors Nation gear. You got to get it. You got to look good. You got to look fresh at the matches.
Show up in that red kit. Unless it's a blackout game, that red away kit, man, that's
nice.
I've gotten a look now. Have you seen online?
I can wear red. I can wear Warrior red.
You've
know what
seen
I'm saying?
online now. They've released all the different looks from all the teams.
Yes.
And the jerseys. Warriors Nation, we got some of the best kit out there, guys.
It looks good.
Some of the other teams, I'm not going to name names.
Name one.
Pretty bloody boring. Name one. Toronto has the most boring, and I will say it, BYU looking jerseys.
Hey.
Okay, it's just boring. It's let's do something original with blue and white. Great. There's nothing exciting about their kit to me.
We quickly move on. December 9th, Major League Rugby announced a new commissioner. His name's George Killebrew, former Executive Vice President, Chief Revenue Officer of the NBA's Dallas Mavericks. He says he plans to grow the sales and marketing aspect of the league among the other pro sports. That's what he did well with the Mavericks. And this is a place where MLR can continue to grow, and this is a nice move for the league.
I think it's a great move for the league. It's really the next big piece. I think as we see the level of competition continue to rise, we see the expansion of the league into key markets in some big cities. We see the quality of international player that's being attracted now, and even the coaching staffs that are being added, that there's a lot to be said for the quality of USA Rugby. Really, the only thing left in awakening the so-called sleeping giant of international rugby is the finances behind it. Mm-hmm. And somebody like Mr. Killebrew that worked with Mark Cuban in Dallas, that has that business acumen, that has those relationships, the ability to build contracts that are mutually beneficial and not just from like a partnership standpoint, but also from a TV standpoint. We're talking about a TV deal that's under negotiation now with MLR as well for expansion. And I think he's the right guy at the right time, hopefully, to be able to guide us through all of that in a positive way.
The real money in all of this is in TV. Sales will certainly help, but that's where you can establish the teams in those spots. And you mentioned the expansion. Dallas and Los Angeles. So LA, great spot for that. And then Dallas becomes the third MLR team in Texas in 2021.
I'm surprised, but I'm not. I mean, LA has always been a get for MLR. There was always going to be a team in LA. There's a great grassroots rugby program there. There's a lot of great clubs historically out of there. They've got a really great tournament down in Newport Beach, by the way. Sharkapalooza, that's fantastic to play in.
Oh, that's a great name.
The tournament is literally on the beach. It's amazing. But so that's not a surprise, I don't think, to anyone. Dallas getting a team, I think, is something that's been in the works. It's the third Texas team. I'm really surprised that we've got 3 in Texas, obviously the most of any other state. Texas is a huge state, but I was hoping maybe to see like a Phoenix team in Arizona. There's a lot of great rugby being played in Arizona. I'm sure that's probably a target market for the league, but I was really surprised to not see something come up there or at another big eastern city. That we've got 2 cities out west, that I was surprised to not see another big eastern market, maybe Philadelphia. Something like that, to really come into the league. There's a lot of big eastern cities that could do really well.
Yeah, another
Midwest team,
Chicago or something, right?
St. Louis, Kansas City. I mean, the cities that have some historical. It's one of the reasons why rugby works in Utah. We have a historical base here for players, teams, families. There's a community here that's involved with it. Kansas City Blues have a great program.
Kenny Scott's an example of that, right?
St. Louis Bombers have
and Michael Baska came over from NOLA, right?
Another great historical program there. There's a lot of these places that, like Chicago's another one that has Minneapolis. There's Metropolis Rugby and what they're doing there. There's a lot of great markets still that have to be mined. So I'm a little surprised to see a third team in Dallas, but there's a lot of great rugby being played in that area. I think the D1 champions from last year were in Dallas. Was that right? I think the D1 club championships were out of Dallas. That was Austin Blacks, right? Yeah, okay. So
see, Austin has good rugby. See,
at some level. Don't sleep. A lot of people have been talking a lot of trash about Austin and having to change the name from Elite. Don't sleep on what Coach Drew Suniula is doing there as the GM coach and what he's going to be able to do for that program.
I was just pointing out the 5 points. That was just tough, right? It's a new year.
I hope
for
you
everybody.
Don't have to go to Texas ever.
I probably
They're
won't.
not going to like
matches.
you there. Anywhere. Sorry. Not going to happen.
Not a fan of Whataburger, so now I can't go either. So there we go.
Next thing you know, you don't like Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, no, come on.
They're going to tow you behind the back of a pickup truck until you're across state lines.
I won't be in Waco anytime soon, I guess. You talk about the model originally was Major League Soccer, right? So year 1, 7 teams, add 2, up to 9, add 3, we're up to 12. After this, 14. This is exactly what's going to work, is not just we're launching 20 teams at this, just incremental growth, and perhaps some of these cities that you mentioned get expansion teams in the future, but it is contingent upon continued sales, merchandise, ticket sales, jerseys, but TV contracts are a huge deal as well. But it's growing, which is great.
I like, obviously, that they're being methodical about it. They know where it can work and where they're having struggles. Put all your eggs in the basket where it'll work. There's no point, especially in the early hours, early years, early days, weeks, months, and years of a league, to say, oh, hey, we've got this weakness here. Let's put all our time and energy in shoring up this weakness. You got to focus on your strengths. Put all of your money and all of your investments in the strengths that you have right now and make those your pillars to build on, and that's what MLR is doing.
So far, so good, and it continues. 12 teams in the league this year. Looking forward to that. By the way, shout out to the Utah Warriors, the guys. Last week, they visited Tiny Tim's Toy Foundation locally, helping out to the delivery of 64,000 wooden toy cars for children around the world. That's pretty cool. They help make
They actually
some of the
helped
wooden
put them
cars.
together.
Yeah.
And everybody came back with all their fingers and thumbs intact.
Right. Some of those cars are probably defective, but perhaps they sent them out anyway. But yeah, shout out to the guys for doing that. It's a pretty cool cause.
It's all a big part of being part of the community. These guys really do care. Even the players that aren't from here, they're invested in being a part of Utah and making sure that that the community knows it, that they appreciate the support going both ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, as exciting as it is for you and I to just sit here and chat, we need to have guests on the show, do we not?
Absolutely.
That's important. And our first guest is a guy who has quite the impressive resume. His name's Shaun Pittman. All right, our privilege now to welcome one of the newest members of the coaching staff in studio. He's a former USA U20 standout, pro player with the London Welsh RFC, and a 30-cap career with the Eagles as a player. He was a coach with the Eagles the last 3 seasons as the forwards coach, including the World Cup a few months ago. Welcome in the first guest ever of the Warriors cast. His name's Shaun Pittman. Shaun, great to have you on the Warriors cast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you, and we're going to talk about the Warriors, but certainly how were the last 3 years and coaching in the World Cup with the Eagles?
It was pretty cool. It was really challenging, to be completely honest, especially with the pool that we had. But overall, I mean, it was a great learning experience, especially with the staff that we had and the player groups that we had. We had a lot of leadership flowing from the forward pack and the backs, and our coaching staff was amazing to work with. You know, Greg McWilliams down with the Rooney, and Gary Gold being with South Africa, and Jacques South Africa as well, and you know, Dave Hodges for him being the GM. He was magnificent. Yeah.
When you talk about the experience of coaching versus playing in it, 2011 you played in it, what was that difference like for you?
I don't know. I guess you kind of think about it and look at it. You're like, oh, coaching can't be that much more difficult. But yeah, it's a stark contrast. I mean, it's a lot more difficult being a coach in that situation. Playing, you get to enjoy the scenery a little bit more. You definitely do the work, but off the pitch and on the pitch. But with coaching, you're kind of stuck in for 16-hour days, just trotting along, and yeah.
Not as enjoyable, you're saying?
You say just trotting along like everybody else goes to recovery, and you guys are back into an office planning, right?
Yeah.
Scheming, looking at overall player health, looking at positions, weaknesses, opportunities, and all those things.
Yeah.
What was some of the hardest decisions you had to make while you were over there for the World Cup?
Shoot, I think a couple of them were kind of personnel-based. I mean, resting some players, especially when resting some of our key players. I mean, for example, Nick Civetta, we rested him for a match because of ankle health, but we weren't. He's our main line out caller, and he's pretty good at it. So we rested him in the hope that he would be ready for the last match against Tonga, which he was. But that was a pretty tough decision because he's such a valuable and key player in our line out. Yeah, that was a pretty tough one.
And certainly decisions to be made with the Warriors, but exciting to have you on the staff here. And one of the players that you coached is now a fellow assistant coach with you. Sean Davies was a scrum half on that team. What's that like to now be a fellow coach with Sean?
No, it's really good, and I think our relationship really hasn't changed too much, to be completely honest. Coached him in a few aspects, mainly just the breakdown and restarts. So, my relationship with him hasn't changed just because I didn't have that much time with him, especially how I coach is, there is a fine line between, being friends and things like that. But, I'm a coach and things like that. But, I just want these guys to have fun and enjoy life and enjoy the game. So, being with Shaun and the friendship that we had over the last couple of years, and I actually got to play with Shaun as well.
When did you play with him?
2012, 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was not on the pitch for his first cap, but I was, in camp. That was when I was starting to retire. He was
coming out of BYU at that point.
Yeah, he was coming out of BYU, and it's kind of the transition between us two. So we had a previous relationship even before the coaching.
When you talk about your personal coaching style, do you think it's different having been a player? Do you think the players react to you different knowing that you've had the boots on, that you're not just like a clipboard guy?
I'm not too sure, to be completely honest. I think my philosophy is I just want everybody to have fun and improve as much as possible. If it is, you're going to have different relationships with every single player. Some people might need a little stricter, swift kick in the butt, and other people might need a friendlier relationship, which is okay. So that's the situations that we always, as a coach, you go in, looking at and stuff like that.
How's that feeling out process going with this group right now, since it's been, I guess, just a couple of weeks with you with them?
Yeah, no, it's been really good, and a good breath of fresh air, to be completely honest. Getting to be with these guys for, we were in camp with the USA Eagles for, a couple months, and then we go away, and then we don't see them for a while, but we text and call and things like that. But it's nice to see these guys like almost every single day, for the last 2 weeks. And it's pretty exciting going into the third week, because you can, I sat down today and I was looking at all, where people have already improved and stuff like that, and looking over the films that we've been doing. So it's been really good. Yeah.
How do you quantify improvement at this point of camp?
Well, it's like kind of individual based, because we haven't done a lot of, we haven't, bashed into each other really. So it's like the micro skills. So like I'm looking at, I'm working out really big right now is like footwork into contact. I'm not trying to bash into people. We're trying to use, our footwork to be evasive and stuff like that. And you can really start to see after, just a week of us doing the drills and the games and stuff like that. You can really see an improvement when people, it's a natural movement now for them to carry in that specific way.
So it's not just crash ball and throw your shoulders into it, but you're talking about getting better positioning, setting a good platform, working on a quick recycle to be able to support, the first guy into the ruck, those basic things that sometimes we forget. I know, I've probably forgotten more than I've ever remembered as a rugby player, whether it's through, a series of concussions or my own hard-headedness, not listening. But those are things that I think are good at this stage of camp, especially before Coach Latham comes in, to get that baseline set and to get everybody on the same page, and to press forward is exciting to see, especially where we've seen some, I'll say it this way, the set piece hasn't been our greatest asset in Utah Warriors for the last year. We struggled in that set piece, but we do have some strengths, like guys like Matt Jensen up in the air is an absolute weapon to have at the line out. What are some of the things that you see as the biggest assets and the biggest challenges as you look forward to Coach getting here and as you go through with just your side of the field?
Shoot, that's a tough question. I guess, there's always challenges when you look at it coming into any team. So there's
just a sec is right.
Siri wanted to jump right in there for some
Siri's
reason.
Got a question for Shawn.
Siri wants in.
No, there's going to be some learning challenges, especially with me, and the style of rugby that's going to actually contrast the way that Stevie Scott coached last year, especially in the line outs and scrums and things like that. Is, do we have similar principles? Because I've, worked with Stevie Scott in the past, of course, but I'm trying to bring in a very simple version of a line out to where we are allowed to be a little more creative. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but I want to have the simplest form of a line out so we can have different shapes, and from game to game we can consistently change the picture for teams. Make it really challenging for teams to defend us in the line out. And scrum wise, we have to play to our strengths, which hopefully is speed across the gap. And scrummaging in a very specific way to where we can win that speed across the gap and get the ball in and out. And if we can go for a penalty penalty shove, we'll go for it. But, what we really want to do is get the ball in and out so that we can use our talented backs. We're going to have some really good backs this year, and we want them to use the ball as much as possible.
That's not to take anything away from the forward pack. There are some... The additions, the core that we kept from last year, plus the additional athletes that we've brought in, you've got to be excited as a forward to be able to look at that pack and go, there's some tools here that we can build on. Yeah,
the amazing thing is when, before I even took the job, looking at all the individuals that were, that were part of the team, we have some of the highest tacklers in the league on this team.
You're talking about Lance Williams, who was one of the highest tacklers in the league.
Elkington.
Multiple others. And you watch the game film from last year and you just see them whack people. And you're just like, okay, the physicality is there. And, we've talked about it as a group. So the physicality is there. Like, that's nothing. Like, teams know that we're going to be physical. Now, well, let's bring the technical details in. So we will be successful. If we follow a plan and we allow players to be creative in our plan, well, then we'll be flying. I have no fear in that.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I like it as a forward. for me and watching the struggles that we had at the set piece, it was always exciting when one worked, especially with some of the.
That's not a good standard.
With more of the creative moves though. So,
Right,
but
right.
from a player's perspective, to have the simplest calls possible, and it's what I had in school growing up in New Zealand. You really have a simple set of calls, and you can dress them up however you want around them. So the way the player moves in and out of the lineup, the way the jumper is, that call can be, the simpler that call is, the better. For as a player, the less I have to think about who's jumping and where, the better. And then it's everything else after that is just movement.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we've talked a ton about, if we're able to win a ball just consistently, we spoke about momentum. So we talk about, if we win a penalty on defense, especially in the breakdown, we kick the corner. It doesn't matter where we win that ball. We just need to win that ball. If we win that ball, then we have a higher percentage chance of us then scoring. It's just, how the game works. So we just have to win that ball. And then, then we have a clean platform from that. Well, then we get our backs over the gain line. And now what do we get to do? We get to get Saya, Lance, and a couple of other guys that are great ball carriers. Now we get them easily over the gain line, and now we're just playing rugby. That's it, and that's what we're trying to do.
It's fun.
It's everything as a player you want to hear coming from your coach. Keep it simple, do the basics well. Everybody do your job. You don't have to get too fancy with anything, And I look at the success of teams that came in like Toronto.
Yeah.
Not a flashy team, not a real flamboyant, not the kind of team that you would expect to go sideline to sideline. They just played really good technical rugby and really kind of took the league by storm last year.
Made the playoffs in year one.
I look at, a team like Rooney is going to be the same way. I expect that, the new teams coming in like the Free Jacks, especially to be a very similar, technically good team. And I think getting back to that as a rugby fan is what's been missing in Utah Warriors rugby. We know we have all the other X Factor stuff. It's the little bits and pieces in between that, as you talk about it, makes me feel happy.
And let's talk about that. As you looked at the league, and now it's up to 12 teams. It's expanding. This continues to grow. It's year 3. No league head played beyond 1 year, right?
Yeah.
This is here to stay. It would appear, right? Was that enticing in a way to help grow this in the U.S. domestically?
No, totally. And I think the big thing for me is I personally wanted to go somewhere and be a part of a community. So, I want to be a part of the Warriors community, but I also want to be a part of the Salt Lake community and Utah community. Like, that's the reason I'm moving my family out here, is to be a part of this community. So, myself and the other coaches have already spoke about it. We want to go to clubs and colleges and help them out and talk to them and bring them into the Warrior family. That's what we want. And that's what we need as, the Warriors, is to have a community around us that wants to be around every waking moment of the games and just, these podcasts and everything.
Well, on behalf of everyone, welcome to the community.
No, thank you.
You're here.
This is
Welcome
a rugby,
home, bro.
This is a rugby hotbed, and we are stoked to have you.
Billy, we got to get him around a kava bucket. He doesn't belong fully until we get him around the kava bucket. He doesn't officially belong. Okay.
Should I bring my own bowl? I have my own bowl.
If you've got your Ontano at home, he's already ahead of the curve.
I seriously forgot to bring. I had like a fresh new bag to give to the.
You should have told me. I got a bucket sitting at the house with a strainer right now, just begging to be run. Missed opportunity, coach.
That's next time.
Missed
That's
opportunity,
next time you're
coach.
on the Warriors.
We just make sure every time now we'll just have a bucket. Every time on the podcast.
Every time. It's just sitting in the middle.
It's fine.
Just partake, yeah.
Threaten me with a good time.
How'd you get connected with this opportunity, by the way?
So Kimball and I talked over the summer, and he did, we spoke about it at length for I think a couple hours, just one phone call, and it was good. It was a great conversation, and he basically spoke about it, and then he kind of waited a little bit just to give me some time for the Rugby World Cup, and then he reached out to me after and was like, "Hey, this is like August 21st," and he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this."
So is that early? That's awesome.
It was pretty early, and him and I had spoken over the last 2 years on and off a little bit, and I just think it was the right opportunity, popped up, and I'm just very blessed that he asked me at the right time. Yeah.
And you talk about obviously the time that you played in coming in here and being part of the rugby community in Utah. A lot of the guys you played with have roots here.
Mhm.
You know, guys like Blake Burdett and
Yeah.
Henry Bloomfield and a lot of these guys that still call Utah, at least part-time, home. You know, do you think that's something that you can see more as an asset? You know, as you look at you know, coming from the UK and Europe, you know, that it's all about those relationships and those connections. It's those guys in the local clubs. It's those guys that are coaching.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those guys are coaching high school clubs here.
Yeah.
You know, how much of that can you tap into to be able to find those kids coming out of high school, coming through the college ranks? I mean, with UVU, Utah, and BYU now, all three of those programs being perennial top 10s in their own divisions.
Yeah, no. I think Brandon Sparks has a really good plan in place. I think you know what we've talked about as a group, and he's, like I said, he's putting a pretty good plan in place that hopefully will be, you know, revealed to the public over the next couple of months, which I think is something to really get excited about.
I think it's a two-way street, though. Being inside the rugby community, though, that gap is what we as rugby fans have been looking for from the Warriors. And all we need is a place to meet in the middle. And I think we'll see some great things happen in the community here, and really an explosion of men's rugby across the state in a really positive and healthy way, both numbers-wise as well as the quality of play. I think is really going to help from that kind of a relationship. So I'm so excited to hear that from you and from Sparks.
I wanted to ask you about the 17-hour difference in, I assume, video conference calls. Maybe it's just phone calls with Chris Latham from Australia.
Yeah.
Before he gets here, right, in person in January. How's that going?
No, it's going. I mean, to be honest, it's not as hard as it sounds. Just because, you know, it's the 17 hours difference, but
it's 6 hours.
Yeah.
It's 6 hours behind us tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is basically what what the time difference is in New Zealand anyway. So it's a couple hours.
So what time do you mean?
Going to Australia.
Well, like around like 4 p.m.
4 p.m. works for him.
4 p.m. is like morning for him.
Gotcha.
So, which is like great.
Yeah.
We're just like,
that's not too bad.
Oh, it's the beginning of most of our days for, you know, the coaching and stuff like that. You know, we're at the Zion Bank Stadium, you know, training and stuff like that. So over the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty easy. But you know, the last month has been, you know, the same. And he's been amazing. He's you know, we just send him stuff, talk to him on the phone, emails, texts, and you know, he's back to you within, you know, even in some hours, you're just like, should you be awake right now? Like, yeah.
Coaches don't sleep, you know that.
He's probably itching to get here too. Probably,
oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah.
Spoke to him yesterday. He's just like, yeah, I just want to get there as soon as possible. Like, I'm just waiting for, you know, the final yes, and then on the flight I'll be. So
I know you guys have been through all your basic conditioning tests and all your baselines. Talk about how the team looks physically coming in. How are some of the guys? I know we've got some guys that have really put in a lot of work in the gym prior to this season. There's a lot of guys that are working on getting healthy. How do we look as a squad overall from your perspective?
No, I think really good. I mean, we were doing fitness testing, you know, Bronco, yo-yo, stuff like that, amazing. And yeah, there's definitely some areas that we can improve on, you know,
there always
over
is.
the last, you know, over the next couple of weeks, especially with December being a skill and fitness session focus. But going into the weight room, you're looking at like 10 guys like doing, you know, shifting, close to 500 pounds for multiple reps, and you're just like, all right, this is somewhere we can,
I can work with this.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, this will be fine, you know, this will be, you know. So like, I mean, it's just the amount of talented athletes that we have is impressive. And I think that it's something that I don't think most teams will have, you know, and haven't had over the last couple of years. That's the unique thing about, you know, having a, you know, Polynesian base of players. Like the amount of athletes in comparison is just.
And we saw it on the stat sheet too. I mean, Utah Warriors were at or near the top of the list in tackles broken, in meters gained made, and in offloads made in the tackle. You know, the ability to show off that athleticism we saw in flashes. So if we add to that the discipline that you've talked about, and you know, the expectation of a system that's really going to provide some entertaining rugby from Coach Latham, you know, I think there's a lot of positives for us as a Warriors Nation to look forward to.
No, I totally agree, and I think that Chris is bringing in a system for both, you know, attack and defense, and you know, Ben's playing a vital role, Shawn's playing a vital role, and hopefully I'm going to make an impact in the set piece, and where we can just play a very free-flowing, fun, and expansive game of rugby that's attractive to people come and watch. I mean, that's what we want, and people watch it and be like, well, shoot, you know, I'm going to come to next week's game, you know, or, you know, well, hey, I grab a friend and we can pull them in and stuff like that.
I have people that don't know anything about rugby that have recently been introduced because of the existence of the Warriors and MLR that are asking me already about next season, that have heard about the new coach, and his reputation as a player and who he was, obviously, and then, you know, his coaching pedigree that goes along with it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we should be excited about in the brand of play. Have you gotten a look with Coach Latham about that type of, you know, sideline to sideline, exciting through the hands kind of rugby?
Yeah, like you know,
without giving anything away, without you know, just give us a little peek behind the curtain at what we can expect in that style of play.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean the great thing about what Chris has brought, and you know, Shawn, especially attacking wise, is that they're trying to play this brand and they're giving decisions to our ball players. You know, last year there was a lot of, you know, one out runners, that's if you want to call them, you know, one pass carry, stuff like that. What we're trying to achieve is multiple pass phase plays and things like that to hopefully get the ball to the edges where, you know, we do have good wingers, we do have good midfielders, so we can carry on those edges, and especially our back row. Some of our back row are pretty good ball carriers on the edges, so if we can get them the ball out there, you know, happy days. And then we use our big boys who are, you know, Zaya, for example, who's a really big ball carrier, you know, especially in those tighter pods in midfield. Get over the gain line, and we just keep playing.
You get him inside of 10 meters of a ruck, just going on crash ball with bodies behind him. He's going forward.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not gonna bring him to ground one-on-one somebody like that.
I mean, I think I was looking at his stats. I don't think he had any like negative carries last year.
I don't think he had one.
Yeah.
Not a single one.
Yeah, and he had like over like 800 and some meters carried, which is, I think the top of the league had like 900 and something. You know, I think that was from someone at Seattle. Yeah, but like, you know, he's an amazing player.
And you're talking about a second rower.
Yeah,
this isn't a guy that's playing in the loose forwards. I mean, you're talking about a dude that's got the you know, he's got a 4 on his shirt.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
He can do a job giving the ball. Yeah.
So it's exciting. So we're excited. I know as fans, and you know, obviously we get a little peek inside at what's going on. But thank you for sharing your perspective with us on what we can expect on the field as we get ready with all the different details off the field now, as we look forward to February.
And for being the first guest, we wanted to be someone important and special, so thanks for coming in,
It's kind of a big deal.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's a big deal for us, yeah. Shaun Pittman, the forwards coach, appreciate it. Okay, that'll do it for us. Find us by searching for Warriors Cast on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, IGTV, Apple Podcasts. You found us, you're watching or listening, but share in that way. Leave us a rating, review the podcast. For Shaun Pittman, Billy the producer, Banksy, I'm Jeremy Jordan. So long, you've been listening to the Warriors Cast.
See.